Hello again, wrestling fans, and welcome to another edition of the Scumbags Wrestling Podcast. I've been a little bit absent on podcasts lately. A lot of family drama and illness is going on, unfortunately, and family comes first. So I want to thank you for joining us, whether you're watching on Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or listening on any of those ones, or watching live right now. It's Monday night. It's 8 o'clock. I have my big screen TV going on. Raw is about to start, so I'll be able to let you know if anything's going on there. But missed the last 2 weeks, and building up to Money in the Bank for WWE coming up. It's a big weekend actually because it's Money in the Bank on the Sunday, but it's also Slammiversary from Impact Wrestling on the Saturday. So it's a huge weekend there. I'll talk about that more later on. There's a lot of stuff going on, the releases, unfortunate deaths, some marriages, uh, just to catch up on the releases that happened a couple weeks ago and various other news going on. And then we're going to take a little bit of a break and go into the transition to almost our Ontario Indie road trip with some news. I'm going to start that up soon now that restrictions are over and we've been able to reach out and help out some of these different things coming up, including Backyard Pro and, of course, the All Ontario Cup. We are going to be a part of all that. Those are news things that are coming out over the next couple of days. So let people know that. We'll keep you up to date on what's going on there. So we'll talk about the Ontario Indie Road Trip and stuff going on in Ontario later on. I want to thank you for joining us and remind you that we are sponsored by CoolBet and want to stay cool, bet responsibly. They sponsored the Scumbags Predictions League, and that's what I was talking about earlier with the two events coming up on the 16th and 17th. So that's going to be a bonus week, putting together a couple of special things, including extra prizes. So with all that said, I want to thank you for joining. Feel free to send comments. I will post them, and we can talk along the way if you have anything that wants to be mentioned or just be part of the show. We always welcome that, and I'm hoping Stephen might be able to drop in. He's been quite busy also himself with the reopening of Ontario and having the stores that he helps manage, supervise with Chuck's Roadhouse getting back open. So we want to wish him all the best and hope that we can connect very shortly. But I'm starting off with the fact that unfortunately you have to say rest in peace to Del Wilkes. He was known mostly as the Patriot, retired in 97 after his brief WWE run when it was USA versus Canada going on. Longtime wrestling fans will recognize Del Wilkes as the Trooper in the AWA. He wore obviously the state trooper hat, gave out tickets and stuff like that, and that was his character in the AWA. He was a collegiate football star, had made appearances on some Bob Hope specials when he was doing the USO tours and stuff like that. Then he ended up doing Japan. The Patriot gimmick started in global wrestling when he was briefly there, and then eventually made his way to WCW when he was tagging with Marcus Alexander Bagwell, the Tag Team Stars and Stripes, I believe it was. And of course, before that, I guess his gimmick, the Patriot, was inspired by Jerry King Lawler. Heard that story on Sunday Night's Main Event when Dave Meltzer was talking to Jason Agnew about that, and that many other people had been Patriots, but it was until Del Wilkes actually trademarked it and sort of took the image that Jerry Lawler did as drawings for magazines and made it come to life. The trademark then eventually went to Tom Brandy. People remember him as Sal Sincere. But unfortunately, it sounds like at the age of 59, Del Wilkes ended up passing away from a heart attack. So thoughts and condolences out to his family and fans at this time. Like I said, I remember Del as the Trooper. That was my first incarnation of him. It's unfortunate that he didn't last long in WWE. Another person who passed away was Canada's own Melissa Coates. She was 50 years old, it looks like here. Melissa was a Canadian superstar who worked alongside Sabu as Super Genie. She was into tennis and weightlifting before she got into wrestling, where she was trained by Killer Kowalski, the same guy who did Triple H and a bunch of others, obviously, on that one. WWE had signed her to a deal in 2005, but she only appeared on TV once in a Master Lock challenge against Chris Masters, and of course, did not break the Master Lock. And then she had spent her time in OVW until 2007. The cause of death is unknown at the time, and Melissa had just turned 50, and once again sending out thoughts, condolences, and love to family and friends and fans of hers at this time. On a happier note, though, congratulations are in order for Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch. They got married this past week, and also congratulations to Ronda Rousey and Travis Browne on the announcement of their future child being a little girl. So Vince McMahon's probably already booking her to main event WrestleMania 55 coming up, and she'll probably be like 19 at that time. But yeah, congratulations to Ronda and Travis Browne with their future coming up. Roman Reigns was not at SmackDown this past week. Edge was there instead and took out Jimmy Uso to make an example of him on Edge's road to the Universal Championship at Money in the Bank. Edge blamed Daniel Bryan for not getting the title at WrestleMania, but said he would not fail this time. Does look like he will fail. If you have seen any of the things online about the trajectory of Roman Reigns' upcoming pay-per-view appearances and who he's supposed to be against, I would not be surprised if Seth Rollins causes Edge to lose, which would set up the Seth Rollins Edge match happening, rumored to be happening at SummerSlam, and that would give them something to do. Seth Rollins would then maybe eventually get his shot at Roman Reigns, but at the moment it's still heel versus heel at that point. We've heard also John Cena is returning, and the fact that if that does happen, it's supposed to be Cena versus Reigns at SummerSlam in Las Vegas. So there's a lot of things coming up to keep Roman with the title, and eventually maybe even face The Rock at a WrestleMania in the future. So a lot of things on the horizon. Keeping Roman Reigns strong. Would love to see that happen. Kind of deserves it out there all this time. Just looking over at Raw right now. Looks like Miz TV having the guys from the Money in the Bank side of Raw, the Raw side of Money in the Bank for the guys happening on Miz TV right now. And there'd been some back and forth interaction on Twitter earlier this week with John Morrison and Ricochet. And I guess Ricochet had even met John Morrison when he was younger and had his long straight hair, and he was trolling him on that. So it'd be nice to see those two go against each other and get a boost that they richly deserve. So that's what's going on right now. Oh, Riddle's coming out for that. Speaking of Money in the Bank as well, Zelina Vega returned to WWE on SmackDown this week, and she was put in the women's ladder match that's happening. She automatically got put in there by Sonya Deville, just like Carmella did, and didn't need to qualify. However, even though Liv Morgan beat Carmella on SmackDown, she then went against Zelina Vega and beat her, and it's still not in the women's Money in the Bank ladder match. This is all part of a storyline to make her into a babyface, especially now that she was a babyface, but to strengthen up her babyface image as a single star since they recently got rid of Ruby Riott. So they're building that up. There's also been rumored that Sonya Deville is going to be coming back to the wrestling, and they've just been waiting for the right storyline. This could be that storyline to bring her back. Whether Liv Morgan makes it into the ladder match or not, it could eventually be setting up Liv Morgan against Sonya Deville against each other. So that'll be something to be on the watch out and see if that unfolds. Kevin Owens had won his way into the men's Money in the Bank ladder match on the SmackDown side of things by beating Sami Zayn in a last man standing match. This was definitely a really great match to watch over again. These guys have tremendous chemistry since they're best friends and have fought each other forever. And it's been considered one of the best matches, definitely of this year, coming out of WWE, and not surprising from these two great friends. There's still more entrants to be made for the men's side of things. The unfortunate side of that is the fact that there are more rematches of things that we've seen so many times. Now, it won't be so bad if those rematches produce something great like we saw from Sami and Kevin, even though they've constantly gone against each other. And those matchups that we're going to end up seeing are rematches of Seth Rollins and Cesaro, with the winner advancing, and also Baron Corbin, who's had a odd trademark filed for him by WWE, Happy Corbin, going against Shinsuke Nakamura, who recently took the crown from Corbin without being in a tournament. So much like how Hacksaw Jim Duggan got it from Haku, and how Randy Savage got it from Duggan at one point. Nakamura has done that. Though there is talk weeks ago that USA and Fox are looking for something like a King of the Ring tournament to actually happen on their shows to spice things up and make a themed show. So we'll see how long Nakamura is actually King of the Ring. We're also going to see at the actual pay-per-view as Bianca Belair against Bayley again, but this time it's going to be an I Quit match. So those are things to come up later on with the Money in the Bank on the 17th of this month. Or sorry, that's the 18th of this month. 17th is Slammiversary. Lana, also known as CJ Parker by her real name, was on Talk is Jericho this week. She talked about different plans that were in line for her. Rusev released before her a year before, how happy he was to be released. The fear that she had going to work day after day, not knowing if she's going to get released today or if it's going to be next week or when that call is going to come. She was devastated when it did come and said that she would try in the future not to have a contract that did not include a no-cut clause in there. So she would at least know when her contract is up, she's moving on, as opposed to having an unknown date attached to her. She also talked about going through the tables with Nia Jax, and that there was a planned table spot at Survivor Series, but because Roman Reigns was doing a table spot with Drew McIntyre, they ended up finding a way of, or Roman insisted that didn't happen, so it didn't take away from their match. And so she didn't go through a table and was the sole survivor of the women's match. The planned Icons documentary with Lex Luger was to debut this past weekend. It has been bumped to another date yet to be determined. I guess the feeling is that they wanted it to be attached to something that actually had a run into it. So maybe like a takeover or a pay-per-view where right after you can watch the Lex Luger thing. Lex Luger was just recently a subject of conversation on JR's podcast, Girl and JR, and because it was the 28th anniversary of the slam on the Intrepid just yesterday on July 4th, when he slammed Yokozuna and had the unfortunate run that did not result in a title. So that's on Grill and JR, but hopefully that happens. They were talking about whether or not he should be in the Hall of Fame, and people also blaming him for what happened with Elizabeth. Of course, Elizabeth also was a adult, so it's not all on him. and it looks like they probably do touch on it during that documentary. But there was talk whether or not he should be in the Hall of Fame. I think with WWE reaching out and doing this Icons documentary with him, depending on the response that they get out of it, I could see him being one of the next class of Hall of Famers going forward. Despite what happened when he walked out on WWE without any prior uh, notice, because he was doing the whole loop of house shows during that week after SummerSlam in 1995, and then finished up in New Brunswick just to head over to Mall of America in Minneapolis and show up on the very first episode of Nitro at the Mall of America. So, sometimes old wounds get healed. We saw Warrior go in. We saw Bruno Sammartino go in. Um, Anything's possible. So Lex Luger could be a future inductee into the Hall of Fame. Steve Austin's next Broken Skull Sessions is going to have Kevin Nash as his guest. In recent weeks, there's been Mick Foley and The Godfather. I definitely enjoyed those episodes, and Kevin Nash definitely has a rich story to be told as well. Oz, Vinny Vegas, everything with Diesel, and also the NWO, the touring quads. Yeah, there's a lot of rich story there, plus the legendary backstage politicking of the Click. So that's on the next Broken Skull Sessions. Hopefully it's a long one. I do enjoy the 2 hour versions that they do as opposed to the hour and a little bit that they did with Bailey and Sasha, but those were still decent episodes as well. A couple of weeks ago, we saw more releases. This time it affected 205 Live and the Cruiserweight division, just in time for the Diamond Mine faction to show up, which was supposed to be going after the Cruiserweight division with Roderick Strong, as we saw when they attacked Kushida. So released, though, was both members of Breezango, Tyler Breeze and Fandango, Tony Nese, Arya Davari, Killian Dane, Everrise's Chase Parker and Matt Martell, August Gray. I believe I saw him in a Smash event. The Bollywood Boys, Samir and Sunil Singh, Otoro Rojas, who was supposed to be a part of Diamond Mine, Kurt Stallion, Manira and Marina Shafir. Just skipped over her name for some reason. Sorry about that. Who's Roderick Strong's wife. She was supposed to be a part of Diamond Mine and got released. And I was surprised Tino Sabatelli was still there, but he got released. Plus, also the Raw writer, who recently made headlines publicly saying that she was hired by WWE without any knowledge of the product and didn't even know Bobby Lashley's name, calling him Bobby Ashley. And she just had a very bad showing of herself, and not surprised they end up showing her the door. So who knows if there's going to be any more releases. They're about to go back on the road. They have to kind of trim the fat. They're paying a lot of $1 million contracts to keep people away from AEW, but AEW shown what kind of product they're putting out, and WWE apparently is now not worried about people jumping ship to them or doing whatever. So hoarding a lot of talent is not needed. And they are a publicly traded company, even though they're making so much money with all their $1 billion deals for TV, they still have to make money for their company and their stockholders. So that's why I see a lot of these deals being trimmed. You had people with $1 million contracts like Lana and all them who are not worth keeping for that amount. They could be hired back like Samoa Joe was. And I guess Samoa Joe was in the process of being brought over to NXT when he got cut. And they quickly called up and went, oh, dude, let's talk. and he took 2 months off and then was brought in, as we've seen, as an enforcer for William Regal. He's also said that his goal is to get back in the ring. It's only a matter of time that he gets cleared, and we'll have to see who he goes against. But Triple H had immediately called him and was making plans for him to still be a part of the company because they were already in motion for something he could do other than commentary. So that's going on there. He's doing also some behind the scenes things for WWE or for NXT. Shawn Rossap of Fightful reported that there were cuts coming earlier that day and speculated that Netcom was behind the releases, but WWE reached out to Shawn Rossap and stated that Khan was not behind this. This might be the end of mass cuts at the moment, as I was saying. The first one started in April, but we'll have to wait and see what happens. It's been people in the office and also talent and consolidating things. Apparently, the list of talents that have been considered were not the ones to go public and be released. Some of the names that were released were not on that list. So I don't know how they're picking who can stay, who can go. Just they need to use their talent wisely and stop some of the repeating cut and paste. Oh, we'll do the same thing this week as we did last week. And episodic TV, different matchups, so people can actually get back involved with it. The guy going on the road, they're going to see what fans are actually thinking of them, and no more piped in reactions like you get right now in the Thunderdome. Looks like right now we got maybe a tag team match with definitely Morrison and Ricochet. No, it's just a singles match, a rematch from last week when Ricochet took out Morrison over the barricade. Miz is still in his wheelchair with his injury, so I'll catch up on that in a little while. Gotta love PVRs. Some of the releases are related to the list of talents that got big money, as I said. Most of the 205 talent that had been cut had been there since the CWC and were, according to Dave Meltzer, considered older guys. Meltzer said that on the Observer that WWE is looking to bring in younger and bigger talent. So I do agree in a way they need to get some younger guys, and some of those guys like Fandango was around for 14 years. You wouldn't even realize it, but he was. And sometimes they need to cycle through different talent, let them go elsewhere, bring in new talent, and just keep things fresh. Another departure from WWE was Sanjay Dutt, the former TNA star, had recently been employed by WWE as an agent, and I guess on his own accord left about 2 weeks ago, just to show up in time for last Wednesday when he was now working as an agent for AEW. So, some people do want to leave and freshen things up, and looks like Dutt was one of those guys. And all the best to Sanjay. They're going to need that extra work employees, considering they got Rampage coming up on August 13th, which are going to be Friday nights at 10 o'clock on TNT, moving to TBS eventually, but that's coming up soon. Last Tuesday on NXT, Mercedes Martinez was legit knocked out in her match, a mixed tag team match that involved Xia Li. She took a roundhouse kick to the side of her head, and she immediately crumpled and could just barely kick out of the pinning combination. And she was taken to the hospital and is doing much better, but we'll have to see about the concussion if she's going to be back on NXT this Tuesday, which is Great American Bash for them. They're only doing one night of Great American Bash since they're not going head to head with AEW. And AEW has their first event in front of live fans in Miami, I believe it is. And it's the Rager going on. And then they'll have 2 weeks of Fighter Fest and then Fight the Fallen. So 4 weeks of special events for AEW. And they're bringing back the fans this Wednesday. With SummerSlam coming up next month, it's not clear what Bobby Lashley will be doing at the show. Many are speculating it's going to be Brock Lesnar. However, that's the dream match that people have been sort of wanting. Reason why Bobby Lashley could come back, even. Now there's rumblings, of course, Dave Meltzer, that it could be Brock not doing that match, and it could be returning Goldberg or Bray Wyatt. Plans are so much in the air at the moment, and with fans coming back in WWE on the 16th, we'll see hopefully where things go after. I'm going to say a reset happens at Money in the Bank, whether or not we see Lashley and all the champions still holding it. We'll see where the ideas are when we see the winners of the briefcases, where they're going to go with things. And yeah, it could be a total reset when they start going back in front of fans and sort of almost ignore the Thunderdome era. Uh, yeah. Just want to remind you, you're watching the Scumbags Wrestling Podcast, and you are welcome to send us comments, and I will answer anything you got going on. Looking a couple weeks ago was Hell in a Cell, and Natalya had beat Mandy Rose. In the kickoff match, Bianca Belair retained against Bayley in the Hell in a Cell match. Seth Rollins beat Cesaro. Alexa Bliss beat Shayna Baszler. Sami Zayn got victory over Kevin Owens, and Charlotte beat Rhea Ripley by disqualification. Rhea's still the champion. That's why we're getting a rematch of that at Money in the Bank as well. And Bobby Lashley retained his championship over Drew McIntyre thanks to interference from MVP. And now Drew is back in looking for the briefcase to still be in contendership for the championship. We saw that Kofi Kingston's going to be challenging Bobby Lashley next, and that should probably be dealt with a little bit more later on tonight on Raw. We got Nikki Cross now playing a superhero, which was her own thought, and still more things with RK Bro building up, and that's why Randy Orton was not at Raw last week, and he wasn't injured or anything. It was just part of the storyline with Riddle to build up more things for their probably eventual breakup and feud that are going to happen. So that's that. We just talked about Diamond Mine and going after Kushida and the title. We're still seeing more things from guys from NXT getting tryouts on either main event or before shows happen for SmackDown. Those include Bronson Reed, Shotzi Blackheart, Scarlett, of course, Karrion Kross. There's expecting Finn Balor to return. So they might get held off a little bit until the draft, which is supposed to happen at the end of August. But those look like some of the names being brought up to the main roster. And recently, Vince McMahon, John Laurinaitis, and Bruce Pritchard had all made a trip down to the Performance Center to check out how some of the talent are being built. Some of the main roster people have also been sent to the Performance Center to get some ring rust in a way, but get them back into touring shape. Sasha Banks is supposed to be there, and she's supposed to be also back on the first SmackDown on the 16th. So she's had some time off, and it's just a matter of time before everybody is hopefully called back to action and doing everything that we're supposed to see. I'm just skipping some of the notes if you'd see me looking down, or I'm just quiet for a moment. I apologize on that, but yeah, some of this very old news. I had 2 weeks worth of material to go through. Yes. Oh yeah, Xavier Woods is expected back tonight. They were supposed to be doing a tag team match, I think, as MVP has also been cleared to return. So it'll be a new day against the Hurt Business of MVP and Lashley. Lita was recently on Renee Paquette's Oral Sessions podcast and talked about the past relationships with talent like Matt Hardy, Edge, and CM Punk. She mentioned that about a month into the love triangle story with Matt and Edge, which was legit happening, it wasn't any storyline, but she almost quit. She felt very ashamed of how things went and felt she deserved the backlash and comments made by the fans. The fans were being very harsh to her, and of course, using the word slut and whore and everything, and just really shaming her. She definitely was not in a good headspace, allowing fans to do that and feel that she deserved it. But she ended up retiring almost a year later. They had that wholesale stuff with the Crime Time, and just really shamed her out of WWE. Thankfully, she got into a better space, and she said during it that there was days that she didn't even want to wake up. Lita would eventually retire, said, and thankfully she returned to WWE a few times since and has been treated with more respect from the fans. She even got to introduce the Women's Championship at WrestleMania. We've seen her teaming with her bestie, Trish Stratus. So it's wonderful that Amy Dumas, Lita, is in a better space, uh, especially after everything went through during the Edge and Matt Hardy feud. Damian Priest had been away for a while, but they really didn't say what the deal was. I think he was having some back issues. He did return actually last week on Raw as and was the second last person or the last person eliminated in that battle royal by Riddle to try and take Randy Orton's spot in the three-way. Not only will Mickie James be producing an all-women show for the NWA, she announced that she'll be getting back into the ring, competing on the 73rd anniversary of the NWA on August 29th. There's been no opponent yet announced for her. By that time, she definitely will have her no compete clause taken care of, and that's why she can get back in the ring. She's not doing anything in the ring prior to that, doing the women's pay-per-view, which we'll look to have more details on that on our next episode, because NWA is doing a regular pay-per-view and the women's one all around the same time, back to back, I believe. So we'll have more information on that on our next episode, along with looking at what's going on with Money in the Bank and Slammiversary. AEW has announced some more dates for their return to touring. On August 11th and 13th, they'll be in Pittsburgh, and this will be for a live Dynamite, and then 2 days later, be a live premiere of Rampage, which, as I said earlier, Friday at 10 o'clock. Britt Baker tweeted out the news that she's Pittsburgh native and will most likely be used predominantly on both those shows. Paul Orndorff's son posted a couple weeks ago a video on YouTube documenting the rough shape that his dad is in. It's a very sad video to see, and has been removed from our page on Scumbags Wrestling out of respect for the legacy of Mr. Wonderful. David Penzer also had tweeted out about people should not be watching this out of respect for Mr. Wonderful and the fact that he would not want to be portrayed in this light. I don't know why his son would have posted it like that as an update. I know his son was saying that he loves him. And so it's one of those, do I show it, don't I show it type deal. Maybe it could have been something that's for their own privacy. It is out there, unfortunately. And yeah, just really sad after beating cancer, how he's now in a state that appears to be very frail and dementia. So keeping Paul Orndorff, and your thoughts at this time. Congratulations. Oh, I missed this earlier. In order for newly engaged couple Sami Callihan and Jessica Havoc. Both of them work for Impact Wrestling, and Sami Callihan is actually going to be challenging Kenny Omega for the Impact World Championship coming up at Slammiversary. Since the Mysterio family won the SmackDown Tag Team titles, people have speculated on when they would end up splitting up and have a father versus son feud. Ray told Alistair McGeorge of the Metro that this was an idea when Dominic first started, but they've worked so closely together, they're almost more like best friends than father and son, and they're enjoying working with each other and don't even think about the split and eventual feud that could have possibly happened. And they're enjoying every moment in the ring together and also outside the ring. They're the current SmackDown Tag Team Champions, and hopefully they'll get a match this week or some in time for Money in the Bank, because they deserve to be on the card just like everybody else. AEW has yet to turn a profit since opening their doors less than 6 months before the pandemic occurred. Tony Khan is getting a lot of criticism about the huge 8-figure investment that they've made for their video game, and that won't see any revenue from that until 2022 when the game is expected to launch. Tony is very confident, though, in how successful the game will end up being. Said Sasha Banks is scheduled to return on the 16th. There's rumors that she's going to come back and face and feud with Alexa Bliss. So it'd mean one of them is going to have to switch brands, because they're on opposite sides. Bliss is on Raw, and Sasha was on SmackDown the last time we saw her, and going defending the SmackDown Championship, which she lost to Bianca Belair at WrestleMania. So somebody's going to have to switch sides if that's going to happen. You might have to wait till the draft, but that is one of the rumors that's going to happen between Alexa Bliss and Sasha Banks. Pro Wrestling Galaxy is reporting that B. Priestley has officially signed with NXT UK and is going to be using the name Blair Davenport. There was actually a promo for that and had been confirmed. So she is there. Who knows what's going to go on with Will Ospreay? I think there were some issues going on with Will Ospreay and New Japan. And Chad, draft will be happening very soon before the live shows. No, that's actually supposed to be the end of August, and the last Monday in August and the first Friday in September is when the draft is scheduled to be happening. And if they were going to do it before they return to live shows in front of fans, they'd actually have to do it this week or at the latest next week. But yeah, that's going to actually happen. It's supposed to be at the end of August, 1st of September. No DQ is reporting that WD is going to be going international on September 19th to the 22nd. The 4-city tours will include the following cities: Newcastle on Sunday, September 19th, London at the O2 Arena on September 20th, Cardiff on Tuesday, September 21st, and Glasgow on Wednesday, September 22nd. So I believe I've heard also that with that, it's just the SmackDown crew that's going to be taking the flight over there and traveling. So congratulations to them being able to do that internationally, and all the best if it works. I did hear a report on the news today before I came down here to record, was that a lot of the restrictions in the UK are going to be lifted, including things like masks and obviously traveling and everything that is going to return to normal. They're going to expect to have obviously some COVID illnesses, but it's going to be treated almost like, hey, you got the flu or whatever. They're just reopening everything and rolling the dice, it sounds like, at the moment. Things could change depending on how bad things get, but I guess they're feeling they're in a position to just open the doors and see what happens. This it appears that Keith Lee is still off WD due to issues regarding trademark. In this case, it was speculated that it was involving COVID and recovery from that, because him and Mia Yim did have some COVID issues. But I guess it's now more about his name. He did use it on the independent circuit and is trademarking it. WWE wants to trademark it, but the trademark people are saying you need Keith to sign off on it for WWE to have it, but Keith's trying to do it. So I don't see that working at all. But he's been missing in action since February. Mia Yim was just recently asked about him, and she hasn't even appeared since Retribution split up and Reckoning stopped being on TV. She was, I guess, supposed to go over to SmackDown, has not been brought in yet. But she didn't even comment really on what's going on with Keith Lee. A lot of people expected, since they're engaged, that she'd be able to answer, but she refused, and it's said basically it's his story to tell. So that concludes all the news and notes that I had. I was surprised it took only this amount of time, 43 minutes. I was hoping to have Steven to bounce some stuff off of, which would have obviously taken a lot longer time, but didn't happen. So I'm going to come back in just a moment. I have a couple of vignettes to show, and we'll talk about stuff happening involving the Johners Podcasting Network, some of the shows that are coming up, and of course the Ontario Independent Podcasting Network. And we have Ontario events to talk about. So a lot of stuff coming up. I want to thank you for joining us. We are sponsored by CoolBet. Stay cool, bet responsibly. And we have our friends from different organizations. We'll be back.
Here at Toiletside Wrestling Talk, we interview the top wrestling stars on the independent wrestling circuit with questions including, who exposed you to wrestling? Were you nervous the night before your first day of training? Did your family support your wrestling dream? Are you a witch? For $700,000, would you legally marry a horse? Have you ever cried from a Vin Diesel movie? These questions and much more on Toiletside Wrestling Talk.
Okay, so Toiletside Wrestling Talk, definitely a part of the Johners Podcasting Network. I love those guys. They have a lot of good...
How's everybody doing today? I'm Isaac of Such Good Shoot, and I just want to take a moment and I want to say that we are really grateful to be a part of the Wrestling with Johners Network, podcasting network. You can check it out, wrestlingwithjohners.com, and you can get all sorts of amazing shows on there. We're on there. You got Toilet Side Wrestling Talk with my man Brad Marcus. What do you say with DDJ? One of my favorites. You got Rope Break, Scumbags of Wrestling podcast. Love that shit. You got Pro Wrestling Tonight. You got Pull Up a Seat, a wrestling podcast. You've got Wrestling with Johners, Turnbuckle Arms podcast, and so much more. So go check that out. Go check us out at suchgoodshoot.com, where you can find all of our shows, all of our current stuff. We've got all sorts of written stuff, man. Shane's writing stuff. DDJ's writing stuff. Brad's going to be writing stuff. So we got written articles up there. You can find all the merch you can ever want. You got I'm Jewish with Isaac shirts. You got pillows. You got water bottles and mugs. So get out there, buy the merch, check us out. Check out Wrestling with Johners, Such Good Shoot live Thursday nights, 10:05, every fucking Thursday. So come on out, have some fun.
Yeah, I want to thank Isaac for that shout out. And yeah, if we're back on our Thursday time slot, they slide in right after us at 10:05. So definitely something to catch up on. It's such good shoot. And the crew over there have Alan Funk. People would remember him from WCW as Kiwi on this week's show. And there's also Silas. I had another note about that. Silas from Ring of Honor. He is on there as well. And I'll get to that note in just a moment. But yeah, thank you once again, Isaac, for that shout out. And you can catch them 10:05 Thursday nights right after Scumbags Wrestling. Here's another vignette. You'll like this one. And there you go. That is information on and the trailer for Backyard Pro, Dial B for Backyard. And it returned this past June 30th with an episode. And they got 3 episodes, 7 matches, plus a rough enough segment with the dancing weapon. Backyard, you can go to youtube.com/Backyard Pro. The Scumbags Wrestling are proud sponsors of this. We donated to the GoFundMe that Von Vertigo has set up, and so we're happy to have been a part of the success of Backyard Pro. They have merchandise also at ProWrestlingTees.com/Backyard Pro. There's talent and production donations over at GoFundMe. You can go to GoFundMe.me or GoFund.me/0D671E90. Go to their Facebook page. You'll get actually a link to there, which is a lot easier than me reading that off. But yeah, they definitely appreciate a lot of things go into that coming up. They've narrowed it down to 6 contestants who will compete under the Dancing Weapons coaching and learn at Backyard Pro. Earn a Backyard Pro contract and title match. Rough Enough started also on June 30th as part of season 3. And their next episode is actually going to be on the 8th of July. And some of the things that are going to happen include a one-on-one match with the Dancing Weapon taking on Hot Shit Jay Wheeler, and a 4-way match with Rob Banks, Cornelius Rathador, Jeff Hardy, and Moondog. So you check out that on their YouTube page. My note back up. There we go. Oh, and also just recently, Nadis went over to Game Changer Wrestling and defended her newly won title at Backyard Wrestling, which is on YouTube. Or my apologies. That was on Fight TV, Fight.tv, and that happened just yesterday, July 4th. Okay. On the next one is also going to be Jay Huntington the 6th, and the Cyclops cyclist Adam Safe clash. That was episode 1. Clashed on episode 1 of Dial B for Backyard. Looking at some other podcasts going on with us and the Ontario Independent Podcasting Network is George Mackay. Recently had Fred Rosser on Straight Talk Wrestling, and this Thursday he'll have the Pope, Elijah Burke, as his special guest. Plus, the mini host recently had Danny Limelight and Billy Starks on as her guests on 5 Questions. John Scott of the Johners podcast had Jeremy Prophet on his podcast, Wrestling with Johners. The Wild Man, Mark Marrow, was a special guest recently on It's My House podcast. You hear his thoughts on what he thought was Sable being in WWE, and I think he has a few regrets there. Lewis Carlin is available daily with news on Alliance Pro Wrestling Network. Check him out every day, multiple times a day sometimes, on YouTube and Facebook. HWE is presenting Country Carnage happening during this summer. And some of the announcements that were just made involving Country Carnage include a tag team match with Silk and Stone taking on Airstrike. And that's part of Country Carnage. And there's also going to be Coca's Cabana featuring special guest Lil Wave Maker Kyle Boone. More information as that becomes available, but you don't want to miss HWE's Country Carnage. The Johners Podcasting Network is proud to be a sponsor of Wrestle Carnival. The Carnival of Honor show is happening on September 12th in Nottingham. It'll feature stars from Ring of Honor and the UK scene. Matches from the show will be streamed on Ring of Honor's week-by-week show. And they are also proud to be sponsors of the show along with Graps. If you use promo code Johners, you can get 15% off your purchase at grapsapparel.com. Check it out and get some great apparel from Graps. Speaking of great apparel, you want to stop by our Pro Wrestling Tees store at Pro Wrestling Tees / Scumbags Wrestling and get one of our t-shirts. And of course, if you get the Independent Wrestling comic book tribute t-shirt, you'll be helping out Steven's wrestling journey. Steven just recently turned 10 and is still having a lot of surgeries due to his Chiari malformation. We saw him on my birthday special in May, and he's captured the hearts of the crew over at WWE and The Bump. So, it's a great little guy. Why not buy one of the shirts, help him out, and research for Chiari malformation at Sick Kids Hospital in Toronto. He also has Steven's Hearts for Chiari happening over there as well. Check out their page and see how you can help out. Okay. And of course, Barrie Wrestling is presenting the All Ontario Cup. Joining the tournament this week includes the lead official, Brad Myers, the Young Bull, Junior Benito, the Psychonaut, Travis Moore, one of the dirtiest players in Ontario, Stratos, the Ontario veteran Tornado, the Queen of Crazy, Addie Starr, one of the quiet leaders of the Ontario scene today, Gabriel Frueza, the relentless John Atlas, and Ontario favorite Shane Saber, and the boss in Ontario, John Greed. Those were names added since our last broadcast, and they join Black Lavender, Lionel Knight, the current reigning and defending Barrie Wrestling Three Pistols champion, Pretty Ricky Wilde, the high risk hero, Rip Impact, the returning Kirk Warmack after a 5-year hiatus, the Diamond Tiger, Kobe Durst, and of course the anti-hero, SOS, or as we know him before, Scotty O'Shea, but he's now the anti-hero, SOS. So those are 15 of the names that have been entered into the tournament so far. The All Ontario Cup Indiegogo page is up and running. This event will be a pay-to-watch show like we used to in the pre-pandemic time. 30 wrestlers and a large crew of people need to be paid. The show times and dates will be announced around mid-July. If you have questions, feel free to message Barry Wrestling Facebook account or contact Shawn Gibson. A date for the tournament will be announced soon, with more entrants to be announced in the coming weeks. 10 matches for $10, should I say? $10 for 29 matches. Make sure you click on the link and grab a tier to support Ontario wrestlers and the All-Ontario Cup crew. Just remember, for $10, you get 29 matches featuring Ontario's best. You need the link in order to watch the show. So buy a tier now and support Ontario wrestlers and the garden working crew. So just a couple of things with that. We are going to be proud sponsors with the All Ontario Cup, and we're even getting a bracket named after us. So be on the lookout for more information on the All Ontario Cup presented by Barry Wrestling. But it's not all just Barry Wrestling. It's All Ontario Wrestling. So there's going to be stars from all over the place, including some returning names. This will be a great way of kicking off things once the pandemic has finally ceased. There's going to be a lot of things coming out involving that, and we're definitely going to be having more information and being a big part of it as much as possible. And what we can't do, we're going to do on our own as well. But Scumbags Wrestling are proud sponsors of the All Ontario Cup. There's 4 Ultimate fans in Ontario, and we're one of them. And the other 3 also will have a bracket named after them. So more information on who those other ones are in the coming weeks. And to quote the Road Dogg and our friend Clarence Dewsome, "Oh, you didn't know? Well, you've been hard. They've been hard at work preparing for an official opening, and they're very happy to announce they are officially reserving spots for the end of July. If you're interested in becoming a professional wrestler, Hard Knocks Wrestling Academy is the place to go. With a top-of-the-line facility, in-ring training, weight room, and incredible trainers, including Tyson Dukes and Shane Saber. Prices start as low as $50 a session. They have partnered with the Knights of the Squared Circle to provide more ease of access for booking that we will be launching in the coming weeks, COVID permitting. For the time being, message them directly for all inquiries and to reserve your spot. You ask better call somebody." Thank you, Clarence, for that great message. And of course, wrestling classes starting at Hard Knocks Wrestling in Listowel. Contact them for more information, as I said, and prices start as low as $50 with Tyson Dukes and Shane Saber as part of the training team. And finally, What Do You Say with DDJ welcomes wrestling's last real man, Silas Young, discussing a variety of topics, including Ring of Honor's Best in the World happening this weekend. So join DDJ in What Do You Say with DDJ and hear everything about Silas Young, the last real man in wrestling. And of course, next week, or on our next episode, we're going to talk about Slammiversary news. We're going to talk about more Money in the Bank, more independent wrestling news that's coming up, more on the Country Carnage, Backyard Pro, the All Ontario Cup, you name it, we got that going on. We're going to also look at a brief thing with Ring of Honor's Best in the World, which will be happening on July 11th, so next weekend, or this weekend coming up. So I want to thank you for joining me, and be sure to contact us, scumbagswrestling@gmail.com. Go to our website, Scumbags Wrestling. Thank you for joining us, whether you're live right now on Twitch, YouTube, or Facebook. and listening later on Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or anywhere else you get your podcast from. And, of course, we're also thanking our friends over at CoolBet, who sponsor all our shows and the championship belt for the Scumbags Prediction League. CoolBet. Stay cool, bet responsibly. So until we talk to you next time, we're out of here. Be sure to catch the This Week in History this Thursday at noon with Jonesy and I. Have a great one.
If you want a variety of wrestling news and history, look no further than the Scumbags Wrestling family of shows. On Wednesday nights at 6 p.m., join Shawn, Steven, and Jonesy as we look for the best of the best and break it all down in a unique tournament format on Fantasy Warfare Tournament. Then, Thursdays at noon, take a look back at the rich history of our great sport with This Week in History. Relive title changes, births, deaths, and some of the best events of all time. Finally, join us for the latest in wrestling news, show results, and predictions Thursday nights at 8 p.m. for the Scumbags Wrestling Podcast. The Scumbags Wrestling can be found on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Instagram, along with our audio versions on Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or anywhere else you get your podcasts from. We're a proud part of the Ontario Indie Wrestling Podcast Network and the Johners Podcast Network.